Under the bright lights of the stadium, Shohei Ohtani once again did something that left everyone in awe, not just the fans, but even the umpire standing just a few feet away. It was one of those moments that define Ohtani's incredible blend of athleticism, showmanship, and instinct. On what seemed like a routine play, Ohtani surprised everyone with a lightning-fast move that looked almost unreal, a super speed, Kika pose, that left the base coach, the opposing infielders, and even the umpire frozen in disbelief. The crowd erupted instantly, realizing they had just witnessed something unique, something that could only come from Ohtani's unpredictable brilliance. The play began innocently enough. A sharp grounder skipped through the infield, and Ohtani, already leading off, bolted toward the next base like a blur of white and blue. But it wasn't just his speed that shocked everyone, it was what came next. As the fielder turned to tag him, Ohtani twisted his body in midair, striking a stance that resembled Kika Hernandez's iconic celebratory pose, except this was no celebration. This was Ohtani using it as part of his evasive maneuver. The umpire blinked, unsure if he had just seen a dance move or a defensive tactic. In that split second, Ohtani's body control was so precise that he managed to avoid the tag completely. His foot landed perfectly on the base, and he balanced himself with the elegance of a gymnast. The crowd gasped first, then exploded into cheers as the umpire called him safe. Ohtani grinned, his helmet slightly tilted, knowing he had just turned a simple base running moment into a viral highlight. The opposing team stood speechless. Even the infielder who had nearly tagged him couldn't help but smile, shaking his head in disbelief. This was the kind of creativity and instinct that separated Ohtani from everyone else in the game. The cameras quickly zoomed in on the replay, showing in slow motion how Ohtani's body bent and twisted in impossible angles, his reflexes sharp enough to make the move look rehearsed, even though it was entirely spontaneous. As the replay played on the big screen, the crowd began chanting Ohtani's name rhythmically. The umpire's face, still half laughing, became an instant meme online. He had literally dropped his jaw as Ohtani slid past him. Some fans online joked that even the umpire got struck out by Ohtani's move. Local broadcasters replayed the moment from every angle, calling it the fastest pose ever captured on base. The local Japanese media compared it to Ohtani's signature charm, the perfect blend of seriousness and playfulness that makes him so beloved both in Japan and overseas. But this was more than just showmanship, it was a demonstration of pure athletic genius. To perform such a move at full sprint, under pressure, required not just physical ability but a level of body awareness that few athletes ever achieve. Meanwhile, social media went wild. Within minutes, hashtags like #OhtaniPose and #SuperFastKika were trending across platforms. Fans began recreating the moment at home, sharing videos of themselves attempting to imitate Ohtani's quick twist. Some even turned it into a dance challenge, blending baseball flair with pop culture. Even Kika Hernandez himself caught wind of the clip. He reposted it with a laughing emoji, writing, "Bro just did my move faster than I ever could." It was the perfect reaction, humorous, humble, and full of respect. The moment quickly became a cultural crossover, uniting fans from both baseball and entertainment. Ohtani's teammates were just as amused. During the post-game interviews, one of them joked, "We didn't know Shohei had those dance moves." But another added, "That's what makes him different. He reacts like no one else." Indeed, that move encapsulated everything that makes Ohtani an icon: spontaneous creativity, incredible control, and the ability to make even routine moments unforgettable. The umpire, interviewed later, admitted that for a moment he thought Ohtani was joking around. "I blinked, and suddenly he was on the base, striking that pose. I almost forgot to call it," he said with a laugh. It was a rare admission from an official, acknowledging that he, too, was swept up in the spectacle. But beyond the fun, analysts began to study the mechanics behind Ohtani's maneuver. Sports scientists pointed out how Ohtani's flexibility, core strength, and reaction time allowed him to execute the move without losing momentum. One analyst even compared it to martial arts, saying the way Ohtani twisted mid-motion resembled a deflection move, rather than a slide. As the game went on, the energy in the stadium remained electric. Every time Ohtani stepped back onto the field, fans began mimicking the pose, waving their arms in synchronization. The Dodgers dugout couldn't stop laughing. Even opposing players, trying to stay professional, exchanged glances of amusement. The moment had transcended competition, it had become pure entertainment. After the game, local news stations replayed the footage repeatedly, calling it the moment of the season. Commentators described it as a perfect example of how Ohtani brings not just skill, but joy, to the sport. He doesn't just play baseball, one anchor said. He performs it. That night, fans gathered outside the stadium, holding up posters that read, "Pose like Ohtani," and "Superfast King." Merchandise shops immediately began selling shirts featuring the silhouette of his now famous midair stance. It was as if the entire baseball world had collectively decided to celebrate a single spontaneous move. The following day, Ohtani's reaction during interviews was as humble as ever. When asked about the pose, he laughed softly and said, "It just happened. I was trying to avoid the tag. Maybe it looked funny." That nonchalant reply only made fans love him more, the fact that something so spectacular had come from pure instinct, not planning. Reporters asked Kike Hernandez again about the viral comparison, and he smiled. "That's Shohei. He can do anything. If he starts hitting home runs while posing like that, we're all done." His good-natured humor perfectly summed up how the baseball community felt, admiration mixed with disbelief. As highlight reels flooded the internet, fans from across the globe watched the clip over and over. It became one of those universally shareable sports moments, no language barrier, no context needed. Just a player doing something incredible and unexpected. Even people who didn't follow baseball found themselves captivated by the athletic grace and comedic timing of the move. Ohtani's play was more than just a base-running highlight. It symbolized the joy and spontaneity that often gets lost in professional sports. In an era dominated by analytics and data-driven precision, Ohtani reminded everyone that intuition and creativity still matter. He showed that the human element, that split second of inspired improvisation, can still steal the show. In Japan, morning talk shows replayed the clip endlessly, calling it Ohtani magic. Children were seen mimicking the move in schoolyards, laughing and pretending to be their hero. Some Japanese commentators connected it to traditional martial arts poses, saying Ohtani's balance and focus reflected his deep athletic discipline. As the story spread, even American sports networks that rarely focus on baseball highlights picked it up. ESPN analysts debated whether it was a planned move or just instinct. One commentator said, "If anyone could plan something like that on the spot, it's Ohtani." By the next game, the Dodgers' home crowd brought the moment to life again. Every time Ohtani reached base, chants of "pose, pose, pose" echoed through the stands. Eventually, Ohtani gave a quick nod, recreated the move playfully, and the crowd went wild. The umpire from the previous night even smiled knowingly, raising an eyebrow as if to say, "Here we go again." It was no longer just a moment, it had become part of baseball folklore. That one pose captured everything that fans loved about Ohtani: his creativity, his playfulness, and his effortless ability to turn sports into art. As days passed, clips of the moment reached millions of views. Comment sections were filled with admiration, humor, and disbelief. "He's built different," one fan wrote. Another said, "Ohtani could make tripping on first base look cool." The internet had crowned him once again as baseball's most magnetic personality. The umpire later admitted that it was one of his favorite memories on the field. "I've been in baseball for over 20 years, he said, "and I've never seen anything like that. Players impress me every day, but Ohtani, he makes you forget you're supposed to be working." For Ohtani, though, the moment was just another day of doing what he loves. He didn't set out to create a viral moment or steal the spotlight. He was just reacting, instinctively, as he always does, with grace, awareness, and a touch of humor. But that's precisely why fans adore him. He doesn't try to impress, he just does. Every motion, every swing, every run seems to carry something unpredictable, something human and magical. The super fast Kike pose will go down as yet another example of how Ohtani's presence turns ordinary plays into unforgettable spectacles. And somewhere in that stadium, as the cheers continued long after the final pitch, the umpire stood still for a moment, smiling, shaking his head, and perhaps realizing that even in a game full of rules, some moments are simply beyond explanation. The next morning, as the sun rose over Los Angeles, fans were still talking about it. Local news anchors opened their broadcasts with lines like, "If you blinked, you missed it, but if you saw it, you'll never forget it." That's the magic Ohtani brings. Every game he plays is a chance to witness something new, something only he could imagine, and only he could execute. In a season filled with dramatic home runs, clutch strikeouts, and emotional victories, this tiny, unexpected moment stood apart. It wasn't about power or statistics, it was about personality. Ohtani's ability to make baseball feel alive, spontaneous, and joyful once again reminded the world why fans from every country tune in just to see what he'll do next. When historians look back at this era of baseball, they'll remember Ohtani not only as the two-way superstar who broke every record but also as the athlete who made people smile, the one who could make even an umpire drop his jaw in astonishment. That's the legacy of Shohei Ohtani: unpredictable, poetic, and endlessly entertaining. One super fast pose, one stunned umpire, and one unforgettable reminder that baseball, at its heart, is a game meant to be loved.